Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Wednesday, the 3rd of August. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Craig Vickers. How are we doing, Craig?
Yes, all right, considering it's a new day, so, time to learn the lessons from last night and go again next week.
Yeah, it wasn't a dream, folks. Unfortunately, Rangers had a bad day at the office, to say the least, last night in their first leg of their Champions League third round clash. First match against Union Saint-Gilloise, losing by 2-0 in Leuven. We'll have a closer look at the match shortly. Just a reminder, though, a bit of housekeeping. You can see the little ticker below. We've got that offer on the website just now, just £2 for 2 months worth of content. If you head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe, you can sign up, and loads of you are doing so. So thanks very much for that and enjoying the content. We're putting out loads on there just now. Okay, let's talk Rangers then, Craig. For me, well, let's talk team-wise. First of all, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst made 4 changes from the team that started at Livingston. Of course, the notable omissions were Ryan Kent and John Souttar, who didn't travel. Tom Lawrence and Scott Wright started off on the bench, and we've seen James Sands come in. Bravi Matondo came in as well over on the right-hand side. Malik Tillman came in and looked good in the opening stages as well. And Ryan Jack also returned to the side. What did you make of the starting lineup when you seen it? First of all, did you have any concerns?
No, I was pretty surprised that Tillman started, to be honest. I thought Gio would maybe go with what he knew and maybe Scott Arfield, and I thought that Matondo would line up on the left and then Tillman on the right, but actually it was the other way around. I know they switched for 5-10 minutes in the first half, but I was really surprised that he did go with Matondo on the right, because what that does is pretty much have all your threats on one side, and then on your left side you've got Barisic and Tillman, not the quickest. That's something that I tweeted last night. So that was my only surprise, to be honest. I thought Tillman played very, very well on the night, and I thought he played well against Livingston. But yeah, I was pretty surprised that Matondo started on the right as opposed to the left, and it wasn't maybe someone like Arfield, who has started on the right, obviously a lot under Gio, coming inside and then allowing Tavernier to go high. So yeah, I wasn't overly surprised by it, but I was surprised that Tillman was given the nod.
Yeah, Rangers started brightly for me, Craig. Had a couple of attempts on goal. James Sands with a decent hit. Tillman also tested the goalkeeper, and you're thinking Rangers look on top here. They were dominating possession as they normally do. Union looked to be just, in effect, happy to be there. Of course, it was their first European tie since 1964, which is quite incredible. But then they started to grow into the game. Rangers just passes were going astray. They were cheap in possession. That was a bit slow and laborious at times as well. What do you make of the midfield combination? Because there was a lot of comments last night and comments that are coming in. The build-up was too slow. The defensive midfielders, it didn't work. John Lundstrom over in that deep line right-hand side role, I think, just to allow Tavernier to push up. But it just didn't work, did it?
Yeah, it didn't. It was that sort of same setup that we've seen in terms of, Kamara going higher and then, Jack behind, and obviously you got Lundstrom, but obviously Lundstrom was playing as a sort of outside centre back, but he wasn't really, pushing in, alongside Jack. I would have loved to have seen that more. He seemed very, rigid in his position, and I thought, once he went into the midfield in the second half after he made the changes, I think Lundstrom brings a lot more energy in terms of he moves the ball a lot quicker than Ryan Jack. I thought he and Kamara were really wasteful in possession. Something that Van Bronckhorst noted. We can sit here all day and discuss, approach and personnel, but I thought Rangers probably lacked the basics last night in terms of, just turning the ball over way, way too many times. Sort of lost count of the amount of times Kamara was caught in possession, and that's probably a separate issue in terms of the role he's playing, in terms of playing higher up. But yeah, I think that Ryan Jack didn't have his finest 90 minutes last night. And, it would have been interesting if Lundstram had went into midfield maybe at half-time rather than for the last, 20, 25 minutes. But,
yeah,
I think there was too many players just, lacking a bit of conviction and sharpness, especially in midfield.
Yeah, their opening goal, catalogue of errors for me, Craig. You'd have looked at it in closer detail. When it happened, I was thinking it was put right into the corner from where I was sitting in the gantry, but then on closer inspection, it's really close to John McLaughlin's body. I think he's has to share a bit of responsibility for that. But the two players who should really have done better over on that side for me, Ryan Jack and Borna Barisic, beaten too easily, out-muscled, if you like, no real physicality there, and it was all a bit too easy for me. A disappointing goal to lose, you could say.
Yeah, it was really soft. I think even if you go back 12 months to the Malmo game and you look at the goals we conceded then, it was pretty similar. People just, not going through challenges, not winning their duels, not clearing the ball when it needs to be cleared, ricochets inside the box, and it was the same last night again, the goal that conceded. It was just players not really taking responsibility, way too, I said that, lacking conviction inside the penalty box. I thought we lacked conviction inside both penalty boxes as well. And then obviously, I think John McLaughlin has to do better. I thought initially it took a deflection, but I've watched it numerous times. I don't think it does. I think the power in the shot just sort of beats him, but I think he does need to do better. If that's Alan McGregor, I think, social media is lighting up. So I think he does need to share a portion of the blame. But again, shots shouldn't come in. There's enough bodies in the box for it not to be flashed in from, I think it was just inside the penalty area. So yeah, just a real sort of lacking conviction. I thought, overall, I know we'll touch on it more, but yeah, sort of lacking conviction in both boxes, really.
Yeah, it really did. Big hello to friend of the show, Graham Corky, is heading out to Tenerife. Enjoy your holiday, Graham. A lot to do next week. It will be tough, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. It's going to be a difficult task for Rangers, especially if they play anywhere like they did last night. There has to be a massive improvement in the performance levels. Second half, Craig, were you surprised there was no substitutions made at halftime? I don't think anyone could have had any complaints, albeit Tillman aside, of being taken off at half-time. Cholak, to be fair, never had any service. He was trying hard for the team, but there was nothing sticking for him. He wasn't being supplied any balls as such. But any other, I think anyone really could have had no complaints if they're taken off at half-time. Would you, if you were Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, would you have done so and maybe made one or two changes?
Yeah, possibly. I think obviously hindsight's 2020, but to be fair, I don't think it would reflect well on the manager if 2 games in a row after Saturday he's having to make changes at halftime because the initial approach isn't working. So yeah, I thought it was just. I thought it was clear to see what Rangers were trying to do. They're trying to go around the block, but I think that just the personnel in terms of you've got a completely new front line. These 3 players weren't at the club last season, so you're having to deal with that. But I don't think anyone could have had a lot of complaints if there was changes. I said at half time you could probably change the entire sort of left side in terms of maybe moving Tillman over to the right and then bringing on maybe Ben Davies, a left footed centre half, being able to step in a bit more when the play was switched from the right hand side, and then bring on Yilmaz, because I thought Barisic was really poor in the first half as well. So yeah, I think it was maybe just a case of sort of maybe not ego with the manager, but I don't think it would have reflected well on him if he is having to make radical changes for a second game running at half time again. So yeah, I think you could have changed it any time, but I think earlier the better. But effectively, I think the approach and the execution was wrong anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, Craig said worst performance I've ever seen when you take the ability of our squad into account. I think it's slightly unfair to Union just because we're not aware of them. They are a decent outfit. Remember, they did come close to winning the Belgian league last season. Their defence was the best in Belgium as well. Speaking to a few Belgian journalists as well over there, and they say they are a tough nut to crack. So it's okay. I mean, Rangers are of course a bigger club, bigger stature, what have you. But these are no mugs. If you're in the Champions League qualifiers, you're generally a decent side. So it will be a tough match next week. But in terms of the Rangers' performance, I think in terms of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's tenure, Craig, I know people say Parkhead was a disaster. I think second half at Parkhead, although the game was done by then, Rangers vastly improved, I could say. This was probably, for me, the worst performance that's of a Rangers side that since he's taken charge. Back in November last year?
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, just thinking about it probably is. I think, remember obviously the Celtic game, the first half. I think even the Dundee game last season, the first half, the one when Goldson scored late on, I thought that was pretty poor, obviously relative to the opposition that we were playing. So I thought last night was pretty much similar to the Braga away game, to be honest. I thought maybe we were a bit more solid defensively that night. I don't think we were anyway convincing defensively that night, but I thought it was really similar just in terms of just not carrying, an attacking threat, the ball not sticking in the forward line, not being able to play off anyone. It's something obviously that I said last night. I think that's, Van Bronckhorst's blind spot in these European games. It's all good playing against, Dortmund and Leipzig and having these teams come onto you and then being able to just exploit into the space. I thought you saw that last season, but when you're playing the likes of, obviously Union last night and Braga away and Red Star Belgrade away, these teams are pretty much on the level of Rangers, even maybe less last night. They're, sort of comparative teams. So it's been able to, take initiative in away games, and when teams do constrict the space, having solutions, having ways that you can, penetrate their defensive line. And I don't think that Rangers really have that in Europe. I think they rely on teams coming onto them. I think it was a slightly different under Gerrard, where you could sort of box. We could sort of box alongside their weight. Remember the Antwerp game where we scored 5 over there. So
yeah,
it's just. I think last night was just symptomatic of a sort of wider problem in Van Bronckhorst football, and I think it was accentuated by the fact that there is, a lot of players new to the team, and that we are still trying to build relationships inside the team. The front line was, as I say, it was completely new. We didn't have any of those players last season. So, yeah, I think, approach coupled by, having these players that aren't used to Van Bronckhorst's system, I think that's, couple that together and you sort of get a performance like last night.
Yeah. 55 Kings not happy with Cholak last night. I mean, it's a fair comment in terms of lack of service. But Rangers desperately miss Alfredo Morelos, and Jamie Waddle ask any idea when Alfredo will be back. I have a feeling he'll be back for the second leg, folks. I think he'll be playing at Ibrox. Rangers need him back. However, the only concern I would have, Craig, is he's not played since the back end of March. So it's maybe a bit unfair to expect him to be hitting the ground running when he comes back in. It may take him a few games, I think, for Morelos to start to hit the kind of form that we know he can hit. But he's certainly a huge miss to this Rangers side, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And, again, I drew the parallel to Malmo in terms of the performance. But again, last season, we were sort of hoping that Morelos pulled something out the bag in the return leg, and obviously did score. But, I think that it wasn't enough on the night. And, he hasn't kicked the ball since March. So, relying on someone to pull a rabbit out of the hat in the second leg, and especially considering I imagine the atmosphere will be rocking next week, and there'll be a lot of, nervous energy throughout the stadium. So, yeah, just on Cholak's performance, I think that, again, it showed that when Cholak's in the team, you really need to reconfigure, the way you play. He's not going to drop off the front line. And you saw that last night. He's not going to, Morelos does what he comes short to feet, and you can play into Morelos, you can alleviate pressure because he is so strong at just taking the ball always back to goal. And I think you saw that last night, when there was times when maybe Rangers were pinned to the touchline and Tavernier couldn't go down the line, and Cholak maybe wasn't dropping off to play that central pass inside in the way that Morelos does, and I think that's something that you see a lot with Morelos in terms of, maybe if every option's marked, he's good at sort of peeling off and then being able to sort of play into them. I think you saw that with at the end of the game when Goldson was caught in possession and they went through 1v1 and it was a good save from McLaughlin to prevent going 3-0 down. But, he got caught in the ball because nobody was really moving for him. Everybody was marked, and then he gets caught in the ball, and then, he's screaming at players to make movements ahead of him, but you've obviously got Cholak who's not really making much of a movement. And I do get the argument that he is a player that needs service, but at the same time, as a striker, you're not going to get 5-6, get his chances in Europe. I thought that the one that he did get last night, he probably should have done better with. I think that the Tillman cross, it's sort of flush on his head, and he probably really should be doing better than that. So, I do get the argument domestically that, if you don't supply these guys with 3-4 chances, then, you can't really fault them. But I think in Europe, you really do need to sort of reconfigure, or we need to reconfigure, the way that we play, especially with Cholak, because it's so different from Morelos in terms of his ability to sort of play with his back to goal. So
yeah,
I think, getting Morelos back will be a big boost, but, again, there's just a huge concern about how fit he is really to play.
Yeah, Teddy Bear says he can't play as that lone striker. Better if he played two up front. That's the thing. Alfredo Morelos is still absolutely integral to this Rangers side. He's vital. The system that Rangers play. So let's hope he's back and he's fit and firing. I don't hold that much out, but I hope, Juice Master Gaming says Rangers have never overturned a 2-goal deficit in a European tie. Well, history books are there to be rewritten. So hopefully Rangers can do the business next week. But listen, it's going to be tough. This is a decent outfit. They're compact. They make life difficult. And I mean, we're just fortunate that they never scored a third, because they were through on goal, Craig. At one point, they had an effort cleared off the line in the dying seconds by James Tavernier. But let's talk about the penalty, because that was very contentious. Got to say, when I was watching it in real time, I had no idea what was going on. Initially, Ben Davies had a heavy touch. Again, he's another one that's just trying to get match sharpness, and you can see he's maybe a yard or two off it. But he gave the ball away, and it resulted in a double save from McLaughlin before the play was hauled back. The referee went and checked the monitor over at the side of the pitch, and when that happens, it usually ends in a penalty or what have you been given, or a goal being given. The referee points to the spot, and Van Zier, I think it is, slots the ball away. Never had the luxury of having a replay at the time, but then I watched it back on my laptop afterwards. What a ridiculous decision that is, Craig. And I've seen the rules and what have you. It's an absolute scandal why that penalty was awarded. I just don't understand what was going on there. And Rangers have every right to feel hard done by with regards to that.
Yeah, you do. I remember seeing it at the time, and obviously when they showed the replay, and there was a long delay for checking VR. And when it was given, I thought, maybe there's a rule that I'm not aware of that, it is a handball, because you can forgive referees if they give penalties without the luxury of VR. It's a split-second decision, and maybe they see something that, again, doesn't exist. But the fact that he's been advised by people watching multiple replays and then going over to the monitor and watching this, 5-6 times, that to do that and then still award the penalty, I was like, maybe there's a rule that I'm not aware of. But then, I'd done some digging, and there was an account on Twitter, Dale Johnson, who's really clued up on the sort of UEFA rules, and he was even saying that it's, under the laws, it's not a penalty. The referees made a huge gaffe, which it's disappointing. I think we can sit here and bemoan the performance, and Rangers didn't deserve to win the game. But equally, if you come away with that game and it's only 1-0, then it's you're not even better position to overturn it. But 2-0, I think he's done. It's still achievable, but obviously having that second goal it could be potentially defining, and it's poor from the referee. I think I was reading that I think he was Bosnian, and obviously I don't think they use VR in that league, so I think maybe there was some experience, and obviously he's just going by what he's been told in his ear. But even looking at the replay, there's nothing that Goldson can do. His hands up, it's ricocheted off someone else.
Yeah,
who's less than a yard away. So yeah, it is disappointing, but as Van Bronckhorst said, look, it's happened, but it's now up to the team to hopefully it evens out next week. Hopefully, maybe there's an early penalty decision that goes in our favour. But yeah, hopefully it does even itself out next week and we can overturn it.
Yeah, and as Aldo says, he's quite right. The penalty wasn't why we lost the game, and you're quite right. But for matches of this magnitude, to get into the Champions League and the money at stake, to not know the basic rules is an absolute scandal. So I'm sure Rangers will be seeking an explanation, but it's done now. They'll have to fight back from a 2-goal deficit. Stuart Ballantyne gets in touch. Hi, Stuart. Says the penalty was a poor decision, but we did not deserve any luck. That was the worst performance by us under Gio. I can't think of any chances created in that second half, Craig. There was one where Cholak cut the ball back, wasn't there? But that aside, there was pretty much nothing. Matonda, we've touched on over on that right-hand side. I think everyone was excited to see him in action. He looked good in pre-season. Of course, missed the game at the weekend against Livingston, but came back in and he really struggled for me. It was a bit strange because he was, the Union players and manager said he was the best player in Belgium in the second half of last season. So I'm not too sure why he struggled so badly. Tillman Lowe, was there plenty to get encouraged about with regards to him? I felt he maybe faded a bit as the match wore on. Perhaps again another fitness issue.
Yeah, I thought he was sort of brightest player in that sort of opening period. Obviously creates the chance for Cholak, which Cholak should do better in. And I think you saw he's so comfortable in the ball, he's so strong as well. He's so difficult to dispossess. And as I touched on earlier, obviously he was the sort of the brightest spark during that opening 20-25 minutes. But he spent the game on the opposite side from where everything was going on. Rangers were predominantly attacking down the right, and he was sort of stationed over on the left, and that's something that just didn't really make much sense to me. I thought that you could have just easily have played Tillman on the right. I know he's right-footed and it's not ideal, but it would have made more sense to have him ahead of Tavernier and having his ability to take the ball in, and then Rangers could play from that. I think Matondo, he plays in sort of straight lines. He's either coming short and then spinning behind, but he wasn't taking the ball in because his strength isn't playing with his back to goal. His strength is running into space and shooting. And I thought if you moved him over to the left, then you'd obviously have that greater space on the left in terms of being able to switch, and then he could isolate, the outside centre back. So yeah, it just didn't make much sense to have Tillman, who was the brightest spark, playing on the opposite side from where everyone was, where the action was going on. So it just didn't really make much sense. I thought that sort of underpinned everything that was wrong with Rangers last night. That a simple tweak could have probably made a world of difference. But from what we've seen of Tillman, I thought he was really bright, and I think he should start again next week. In terms of his ability to sort of create chances from that left-hand side. So a lot of encouragement in that regard if there's any positives to take.
Yeah. Let's get to one or two more of your questions, folks. There's some comments coming in. This one from Brian, and a few more sort of tend to agree with them. What does Sakala need to do to be given a chance? He's done nothing wrong to be left out. I said when I think on yesterday's show, Craig, when we knew that Kent wouldn't be playing, I wouldn't be opposed to Sakala playing on that left-hand side. He didn't play, of course, last night. Didn't play at the weekend. Does he deserve a run out, do you think?
Yeah, probably. It's a bit. I don't think it's great for Sakala that he's now. It's 2 games that he's not even got off the bench in a row, and obviously given his comments last week about maybe not being sure where he stands in the team. So I think it's pretty clear that the Van Bronckhorst probably doesn't trust Sakala defensively in these sort of games. I think it's all right when. I think he's all right playing him when you're playing against teams in the Scottish Premiership that you have pinned into the final third, and he doesn't really have to do much tracking back. But I think that's plainly obviously he just doesn't trust him from a defensive standpoint in terms of being able to track back and press from the front. And yeah, I don't think he would have made a huge difference because Rangers didn't really get into the box last night. So and that's probably one of Sakala's strengths in terms of creating a bit of chaos inside the box. So. And he's not someone that really takes great ownership of the ball. So, yeah, I don't think he would have made a huge difference last night, but I think it is maybe a separate worrying issue that, he does seem to have just fallen off the face of the earth in terms of Van Bronckhorst's plans, and especially not even getting off the bench on Saturday as well. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's, and I'm sort of a loss to maybe where he stands on the Van Bronckhorst, but I don't think that the fact that he can't go off the bench tonight or on Saturday is a good sign in terms of his future prospects under Van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's talk about somebody's banging on my door. 2 wee seconds, folks. Just been handed a toilet roll from the cleaners at the hotel there. That shows you that we're live, folks. Right, let's crack on with some more Rangers chat. Ridvan Yilmaz came on. Craig, he and Ben Davies came on a double substitution. He looked lively, Yilmaz. I think Barisic never covered himself in glory last night. I mean, he tested the goalkeeper with a well-struck free kick in the opening stages of the game, but then from then on in, it was a poor display, you've got to say. And with Yilmaz coming in with the money that's been spent on him, I think he comes in at left back at the weekend and next week. Would you tend to agree?
Yeah, I think actually the left side that ended the match with obviously Ben Davies at left centre back. Well, I think Rangers will go to a 4, but even then, I think Ben Davies might still start. I think you'll have Ben Davies at left centre back, and then you'll have Yilmaz on the left. I think that was far more conducive to what Van Bronckhorst was trying to do last night in terms of having threats on the left hand side. It was just way too centred on the right hand side, and it was too easy for Union to sort of compress that space and sort of pin Rangers into that side. So I thought Yilmaz actually did look bright. I think it was difficult in terms of he's not going to create chances when Union were playing so deep. So
yeah,
I think the only chance of the second half, obviously the Cholak when he flashed that across goal. If I remember correctly, I think it did come immediately after Yilmaz came on in terms of, I think the ball was played to Lundstrom and then he sort of threatened to play it through to Yilmaz because he was making a run in behind, and I think Union dropped off maybe 5-10 yards to guard against that run, and then eventually Rangers were able to work it to the other side and eventually get into the box for one of the first times. So I thought Yilmaz looked really bright. I thought Davis looked maybe a little bit rusty defensively, but he's coming into a game where it's pretty chaos. Rangers are chasing a goal, and I thought he looked good in the ball. I think he delivered the cross for Cholak, which eventually was collected by the keeper. But yeah, I think that left side will be what we see next week, because I just don't think that Sands and Barisic, it was a black hole in that side last night, because Sands is right-footed and he's playing on the left. Everything's going to come back inside the pitch, and I don't think Borna's the type of player that's going to stretch. He's going to stretch a game down the line. So yeah, hopefully that next week it will be sort of Davis and Yilmaz on that side.
Yeah. The performance is going to have to be a lot better next week. It was interesting speaking to a Belgian journalist last night. He asked me, he was quite surprised. I think he says, do you think Ibrox is going to be full next week, even against a team like Union? I think, yes, don't you worry about that. There's going to be about 50,000 in there. So, I mean, the Ibrox crowd are going to play their part, of course. It's going to be bouncing Ibrox, but they're going to need the players on the park to produce a performance that is befitting of that, and overturn it.
It was as I say, I don't want to keep bringing up the Malmo parallels, but I remember after the first leg last season when obviously we lost 2-1 in Sweden, and I remember Gerrard's interview after, basically saying, like, I've never called in the Ibrox crowd, but
yeah,
this is the first time I'm going to do it, and 12 months later I'm back at the exact same place where Van Bronckhorst is again saying, look, we need the crowd because we've dug ourselves a hole here. So yeah, obviously the Malmo game I think we started really well in that game, pretty much, playing off the energy of the crowd, and then eventually, the game, obviously Cholak scored twice, but eventually the game just switches, and yeah, it's something that Rangers need to stop digging themselves at these holes in first legs of these European ties. It was the same during the Europa League run, going away to Braga and losing 1-0, and then, having to go through extra time at Ibrox, and then Leipzig obviously losing that late goal, and again having to go to the well again. So yeah, hopefully next week again that what we've seen in return legs under Van Bronckhorst in Europe can got to play out again in terms of being able to sustain that pressure, and as opposed to, you know, against Malmo last season when it was, you know, started well and then just badly faded after the game.
Yeah, Sonny Boyd quite rightly puts it. The crowd can only do so much yet. It's a 12th man, as they say, but it's up to the players to influence the game and get the result, and they're going to have to roll their sleeves up next week. Just before we go, a big shout out, thanks to all the Rangers fans I spoke to yesterday in and around Leuven. It was great to catch up with many of them. Even met a guy that's flew all the way from New Zealand, no less. He flew from Auckland to Dubai to Glasgow, Glasgow to Brussels. So that shows you what it means to follow Rangers. That's what this club means. But unfortunately, you couldn't witness the side getting a result in Europe last night. 2-0, but it's only half-time, folks, remember. That's key to remember. Big, huge match next week, next Tuesday night, of course, for the right to play either PSV or Monaco in the next round. That was one apiece, their tie in Monaco last night. So finally poised that one as well. But yeah, big task for Rangers to get past Union Saint-Gilloise. Okay, that'll do us there, folks. Just a reminder, we've got that offer on the website just now, £2 for 2 months worth of content. It really is a great offer. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. We'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.